Andariel took the knowledge she needed and so began to lure mortal men into her dark corner of hell. If these legends are true, she is not a creature to be taken lightly.
Why does Andariel purposefully punish Griswold in Diablo II? And does their feud reveal something shocking about the blacksmith that nobody seems to notice? During the events of the original game, all who opposed Diablo suffered terrible fates, from the boy prince, Ulbrich's young body hollowed out as a nightmare vessel in order to reincarnate the Lord of Terror, or even the warrior, destined to carry the burden of Diablo's mantle, trying in vain to contain evil for just one more day. Tragically, all of the townsfolk of Tristram suffered. But one of the villagers seems to not be directly held responsible for his crimes, at least by Diablo himself.
Whoa, what can I do for you?
In Diablo II, we witness the fate of the downtrodden town of Tristram and its inhabitants, thanks to the demons left in the wake of the warrior, now under the guise of the Dark Wanderer. We see where Wirt was slain, a stone's throw from his favourite tree. Poor Farnham forgotten by his favourite drinking rock, and of course, Deckard Cain, helplessly locked in a gibbet to watch the carnage unfolding, squawking for aid to any who could hear.
Help! I thank you, friend, for coming to my aid.
And the list goes on, but Griswold, the blacksmith, seems to be a special case of his own. You'd think the great evil would take umbrage with Griswold especially, as he was undoubtedly instrumental in Diablo's downfall, compounded by the fact that the Lord of Terror no doubt would see the warrior's memories and knows it was Griswold who supplied weapons to the adventurers looking to battle the burning hells. It was Griswold who tasked the warrior with stealing the coveted Hellforge.
Find the anvil for me, and I'll get to work.
Adding insult to injury, it was also Griswold who then crafted a weapon on the very Hellforge they stole, potent enough to kill the prime evil.
I need to get this to Griswold.
Such blatant transgressions must be addressed.
Oh, I can hardly believe it. This is the Anvil of Fury. Good work, my friend. Now, we'll show those bastards that there are no weapons in hell more deadly than those made by men. Take this, and may light protect you.
But suffer Griswold would. The official Diablo II lore reveals the stout blacksmith Griswold was one of those who were bound past death to attend the desires of the three. Wandering the town he once loved, he uses arcane powers and unholy strength granted to his twisted body by Andariel to stop any from following the path of the Wanderer. Strangely, he was not killed directly by Diablo, but specifically, we're told, Andariel. But why? And how on earth are the two interconnected? And does their hidden dispute hold a higher meaning? Well, the answer, curiously, may lie in Andariel's cut content slated for Diablo 1. As many of you are aware, Diablo 1 featured a surprising number of cut quests that were removed pre-launch. Unfortunately, most were basically complete, including in-depth lore, voice acting, and new plus familiar monsters alike. However, thanks to the Beelzebub HD mod, you can still experience these quests restored today. Now, one such cut quest was originally given by Jillian, the barmaid, beseeching us to find some missing villagers, Anais and Ruth.
Beg pardon, but have you heard what has been happening? Some of the men have vanished from the village. Disa's sons, Aeneas and Ruf, claim to have seen strange lights glowing deep within the woods a few days ago, but no one has heard from them since. I too have seen a crimson shimmering from beyond the ash groves, but I've been too afraid to approach it. I fear that Ogden or our healer Pepin may be next. Won't you please find out what has happened?
Of note, Jillian specifically calls out Ogden and Pepin as potential victims. If we then speak to Deckard Cain, he confirms Jillian's suspicions while simultaneously casting shade on the barmaid.
While the barmaid may seem a bit confused at times, it is true that men have been disappearing from the village. It reminds me of ancient writings about a demonic temptress called Andariel. known as the Maiden of Anguish, her thirst for mortal blood was so great that she sought to learn a spell to breach the mortal realm by seducing one of the dark sorcerers of the netherworld.
So Andariel was behind the attacks. Well, according to Adria the Witch though, Andariel has quite the appetite for men.
The succubus is a demon that feasts upon the essence of mortal men. You will find that Andariel has quite an appetite. The town will soon be devoid of any adult males unless you stop her feeding now.
And it's true, the grove that Andariel and her succubi occupy was the only above-ground dungeon in the game and is peppered with blood stars, being the alluring lights which the villagers spoke of. When battling Andariel, we find the corpses of many villagers, no doubt the hapless men, Ananias and Ruf, lured to their demise.
You lure no more men to their deaths.
But what does this have to do with Griswold? Well, the plot thickens. When speaking to Ogden, he dismisses the rumor, having not seen the light himself.
Gillian has been going on and on about strange lights in the trees, but I haven't been able to make heads nor tails of her story. I certainly haven't seen any strange lights, and if I did, they would be the least of my worries.
Perhaps he was too dedicated to his unseen wife, Ada. However, Wirt, the young rapscallion, wants to see the light, probably due to the rumors of the ladies, or to confirm that Gillian is not crazy. Give her about 20 years, Wirt, old boy.
You know, I've been looking for those lights, but I can't find them. If Gillian says they are there, I believe her, but I have yet to see them for myself.
The only villager confirmed to have witnessed the siren's seductive shining stars was Griswold the blacksmith, and to which he said,
I admit that I too have seen these strange lights, but I have not felt pulled towards them. I'll be sure to steer clear of them, and will tell everyone that visits here to do likewise.
So let's get this straight. Griswold is the only villager to see the stars, but is not tempted by Andariel, a half-naked succubus and certified man-eater. Now, this spawns a flurry of questions. Was Griswold too pure to be tempted? Or was Griswold secretly attracted to men, therefore the succubus were barking up the wrong blacksmith? Well, consider the following. Although the content was cut, it seems Griswold, for his perceived indignities to Andariel, suffered greatly at her hand. And this mirrors King Leoric's suffering by the hand of Diablo. As many of you are aware, King Leoric was the only man to resist Diablo's possession, due to him being immutably pious. Diablo, however, would not let this indignity go unanswered. Or as the Lord of Terror famously states, not even death can save you from me. If he could not possess Leoric, he would instead drive him insane, having the king responsible for butchering half of his own kingdom and feed into the terror, which in turn empowered Diablo. The tragedy of Leoric is made all the more poignant as, if you take into account Griswold's encounter with Andariel in Diablo 1, they share a chillingly similar fate. Leoric was turned into an undead skeleton king, and Griswold was turned into an undead servant of Andariel. And although Andariel was cut from Diablo 1, the specificity of her targeting Griswold still makes sense. And I posit that Andariel chose Griswold for the humiliation or perceived slight she suffered, feeding off his anguish as he's forced to serve her and the primes as a gatekeeper, making sure Diablo ascends to the throne in which he tried to bar previously. I do want to note that a character's sexuality personally is not inherently interesting. However, the reason why I believe Griswold being gay would have elevated the story was twofold. The first is that the idea of Andariel trying her seduction to no avail and being furious is a delicious little quandary for the succubus. Second, what Andariel did to Griswold. Specifically, he wasn't remade as a demon like Bloodraven. Instead, he was zombified or undead. But what do the undead do? They bite flesh. I love the idea that Andariel was like, okay, you want to eat man meat? Well, have all the flesh you can handle, and forced him to live as a wretched abomination, all because her pride was injured. Now, obviously, 20 plus years ago, censors already had a field day with the Diablo franchise with its religious imagery and gore. Plus, openly gay characters were, back then, heavily frowned upon. See Streets of Rage 3, removing Ash from the US version as an example. Therefore, I believe the developers may have hinted at subtly the idea but ultimately scrapped it with the thread of the original story in place. Or I could be totally wrong. They may have just chosen Griswold due to his size and thought, in the gay community there's something called a bear. No, I'm just kidding. If we're making a gatekeeper, Griswold makes sense. Like I said, I could be creating threads of storylines where none exist, but before you dismiss this theory, remember the old saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Demons that assume the form of beautiful women, you say? That's horrible. Thank the light that you solved this mystery before any more of our men were lured to their deaths. Thank you for keeping us safe from the powers of darkness once again.